My dad used to say that he could see faces in the floor tiles. The ones in the bathroom, specifically. I laughed and I told him that that's a normal thing. It's called pareidolia. The tendency to see a pattern where there's nothing. Like seeing a cloud and thinking it looks like a turtle. And people see faces in inanimate objects all the time. Within wood grains and ink blots, tea leaves and spilled paint, we see something where there's nothing. The Blessed Virgin on a grilled cheese. Jesus in a water stain under the sink. St. Peter in a quesadilla. I laughed. But after my dad passed away, I started seeing them too. On the floor tiles, not in the quesadillas. They look angry, he told me. And they're leaving messages now. I don't think this is pareidolia. That had really scared me for some reason. My dad was a smart guy. He already knew what pareidolia was, even if I thought that I was teaching him something new. Like how when he watched Jeopardy, he already knew all the answers, even if I was the only one who said them out loud occasionally. So when I started noticing the faces on the floor tiles after his death, I took note. I began to draw them, to write down the messages that they were sending, as I tried to decipher their hidden meanings. I tried not to become as obsessed with them as he had been before he died, before he drowned. The faces in the floor tiles didn't look angry to me. They looked happy, pleased with themselves. I thought it was fun at first, seeing the faces, reading the secret messages they left for me, deciphering them. Not just in the floor tiles, but increasingly in more and more places. The floor tiles told me to look out for the bike messenger, and on my walk into work I saw him coming and stopped in my tracks. If I'd continued on, I would have been splashed a second later by the big puddle he veered into accidentally. I would have ended up covered in mud, and my day would have been ruined. I grinned, and I walked into work knowing that I had a special line to some power that had a few tricks up its sleeve. This had clearly just been a way to prove its abilities, and I wonder what would be next. The messages came again soon after, hidden in the patterns of the marble countertop in the kitchen at work. While stirring the cream in my coffee, I stared at it, tried to make it out. Just as I deciphered the message, someone said, "You all right there, George?" It was my boss. He was staring at me while I mindlessly stirred my coffee, just as I had been doing for 5 minutes. I had also been speaking silently under my breath as I tried to make out the words in the hidden message in the marble countertop. "Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, just got lost in thought. What's up?" He shook his head and went over to the fridge to get another energy drink. As he walked past me on his way back into the office, he muttered something under his breath. "Really know how to pick him, don't you, Craig?" Pretty sure he's going to fire me soon. Anyway, the message told me what to do next. There were online forums, it said. Places where I could learn more. Places where I could find a community among the others who were able to see the messages, the faces. On the dark web, I found the hidden community and used the password given to me by the messengers in the marble slab. Further proof of the fact that this was real. The password worked. They permitted me to become a member of their organization, the Pareidolics. The secret community had one purpose: to follow the directions set forth by the messengers and fulfill their commands. I became a valued member of the organization. After I revealed that I had a talent for drawing the hidden faces and decoding their messages. Not everyone was capable of that. Most had to simply remember things as best they could, since the faces never showed up in photographs. Soon I was spending all of my time with the other members of the group online, decoding secret messages. My family wanted to know about my interests, so I told them about our group. They told me that I was losing it, and that I needed to get help. It didn't matter how much I tried to convince them. They told me that it was nothing more than pareidolia. Finding patterns where there's none. My mom booked me a session with a psychotherapist, just for a chat, she said. She said I was taking my father's death too hard, and that my obsession with the faces was a delusion brought on by PTSD, perhaps. Because of what I witnessed that day at a pier, I told her that she was wrong. I knew for a fact that she was wrong. She said I sounded just like my father. Next time I saw the faces in the pattern ceiling of the subway car, I noticed that they looked angry. They told me to go to the pier, the same dock where it had happened, and where he died. And so I did. You know, looking down into the inky black water from the rickety wooden deck above, I watched as the light shimmered and reflected off the surface of the lake, making patterns where there's none. Messages and faces, familiar faces sorely missed and gone too soon. Join him. My foot stepped over the edge. I was about to lean over and plunge myself into the cold, brackish waters below when I saw the face appear beside the words. No longer angry, but not smiling either. It looked hungry. I took a step back and scowled, shaking my head. I tried to clear my thoughts and remember why I even was there. Why was I doing this? The shimmering reflection of the moon on the water below told me not to worry, not to fret, just to give in, and before I knew it, I was falling. Ice-cold water shocked me, and I felt myself incapable of movement as my mind blanked completely, unable to register the gravity of the situation I just found myself in. I realized immediately I didn't want this. Whatever force had brought me here, it was the same one that killed my father. It had been deceiving me all this time, reeling me in with a secret message hidden in the tiles and the woodwork, in the marble countertops and the patterned ceilings. The force of it pulled me down, grabbing me by the ankles, and took me under the surface, gulping down water instead of air, feeling immediately out of breath. My legs began to kick, and I started trying to swim up towards the surface in the ice-cold water. I managed to come up for air, and coughed up a lungful of water, took a great gasp breath of air, looking around with panicked wide eyes. There was no one around this late at night, and the waves were high, and a large one was just now about to break and crash down upon me. I held my breath and braced for the impact. The wall of water crashed into me, and I felt my nose bloodied from the sudden hit. Water went up it as well and into my airways, and I found myself plunging below, unable to expel it. I sank down and down, feeling heavy with the weight of my clothes, disoriented from the force of the impact of the wave. The water was reflecting in odd patterns, making it appear that up was down was up. Running out of breath, I struggled to find my way back to the surface, but could not decide which way to go. I picked the direction that felt right and kicked as hard as I could to try to get back to the air on the surface. I was terrified that I would die, but at the same time furious, for I knew that the entity that had killed my father was attempting to do the same to me, only now that I was able to die in the same watery grave when his body had been lost and never found. Did I realize how foolish I had been? I cursed myself, remembering how I had sided with the people from the message boards instead of my own mother. And I wished I'd believed her when she said the pareidoliacs were nothing but trouble. That was when I saw the rope ladder suddenly appear beside me. I looked up, I saw my mother standing on the pier and a worried look on her face. She was screaming at me and pointing at the rope ladder as I thrashed and struggled in the icy water. Grabbing onto the first rung I could get my hands on, I began to climb. And once I got out of the water, she told me that she had been worried that I was starting to follow in my father's footsteps. Maybe the secret messages and hidden codes had brought me to the very place that had taken his life. She brought the rope ladder from my childhood treehouse, thinking that she might need it for some reason. A little voice inside her head told her to bring it along. And she had listened. Hey there kids, it's me, MrCreepyPasta, and I wanted to tell you thank you so much for watching tonight's video or listening to tonight's episode of the podcast. If you guys are confused about what I'm talking about every time I say tonight's video or tonight's episode of the podcast, you can always find out more about that at youtube.com/MrCreepyPasta, where you can subscribe and get the latest video. Or if you're listening to the videos, then you can find it on Spotify under MrCreepyPasta Storytime, and you can listen to this as a podcast, if you want to save yourself your data. Or if you're listening on the podcast and you're like, man, what episode is this? I don't know how to find more of this or what came before it. Check out the YouTube. There's full playlists of all the series, and they go years back, which I can't do on the podcast, unfortunately. And like always, I want to give a big thank you to all of my supporters on Patreon. You guys, as always, are the real MVPs. And I really appreciate it. If you guys want to join them, you can head over to patreon.com/MrCreepyPasta and see all these cool, fine folk that I'm about to mispronounce the names of here or in the description down below. People such as Jacob Shaffer, Zach, Jordan Alexander Sanchez, Brian Arce, Ken Lando Higuchi, Bobby Karman, Tristain Pelton, Chase Burnett, Diana Kraus, Melancholy Corpse, Hollow Zero, Ferb, Harley, Tainted Raven, Katie Birch, Sashi Suzaku, Katrina Beisel, Kayden the Spooky Boy, Zane Nightshade, MyBodySoundsLikeRiceKrispys, AshWood, Lord of the Weebs, Jay, Miss Xandra, MrUnsettlingSpaghetti, Eurogore, Tsuji Campbell, Marco Takes Dabs 420, Stricken, Azurine Fox, Robert White, Andre Garcia, Snails Brennard, Legit Quad Feed, Fried Chicken 12, James Bruce, Chris Levins, Freddy Krueger, Ty Nanny, 1-800-Nightmare, Unknown Nobody, Michael Scarborough, Infernal One, James Lowe, Lisa Cottrell, Jimbo the Hutt, Caspian, Jordan Els, Hades' Nephew, Tater Chip, Acid System, Prozac and Pancake Appreciation Society, Cryptic Nightmares, Brennan Wright, Someone You Love, Kiri the Sloth, Tommy Green, Liam Newman, Sky Harbor, Caleb Dougal, Nina Smith, Nico Kyle, Rafael Rodriguez, The Ginger Bros, Aaron Stormcrow, Daniel Polson, Trace Miles, and Corey Kenshin. Thank you guys, as always, for supporting the channel. You're all wonderful. I love every single one of you guys. For real. You guys help me out so much, as well as everybody down there in the description below, as well as everybody else who watches and subs and does everything else with this channel. Thank you guys so much. And as always, sweet dreams.